We live in a fast-paced and hectic world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control. How do you manage all the competing pressures without losing sense of yourself? How do you stay focused enough to not only plot a path, but follow it? Welcome to Master Your Life, a show that offers inspiration, insight, and intelligence, as well as success stories from many walks of life that can show you how you can control your own destiny. Our knowledgeable and entertaining host and her guests give practical advice that you can use every day in the quest to master your life. Now, here's your host, Leaha Mattinson.
Hi, and welcome to the How Not to Think podcast, the podcast that gets you thinking differently about many aspects of your life. I'm Dr. Howard Rankin, and today I'm delighted to have with me all the way from Alberta, Canada, Leaha Mattinson. Leaha was gracious enough when she started out, I think 6 years ago it was, Leaha, your Master Your Life program on UK Health Radio and podcast, to have me be a co-host for a number of years, and that was awesome. And I got to know Leaha and her amazing story. Leaha, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me on as a guest, Howard. It's fun to sit in this chair for a change.
Yeah. Leaha has a great show, as I said, Master Your Life. It's on UK Health Radio. And she's done many great interviews on many different topics, but specifically around health and wellness. And Leaha is an expert in that in many ways. And she has her own personal story that I'm a big admirer of. She was in her family. She had the gene for Huntington's disease, which is a very genetic disease, and was diagnosed with that and shown that she was gene positive for it. And what she did next, I think, is amazing, and I think it's a lesson for us all. Tell us what you did next when you heard that you got that diagnosis.
Well, thanks for asking, Howard. It's quite the process, the genetic testing in Huntington's. So it's like an 8-month process, just to give people some sort of context about it. So when the doctor actually delivered the diagnosis in my hand, this written piece of paper, it said, "You have inherited," and the like shouty caps of "you have inherited" was very shouty caps. And I went, well, that's not for me. That's just like, wow, no. And I had brought somebody with me, and they had actually insisted on coming. Just a friend had insisted on coming along to that event, and they just bawled. And I was sitting there going, I have to take care of you. And it's like, it was interesting how, I don't know, maybe it was a divine mercy, right? That somebody else was there having this big emotional response while I was sitting there going, well, I've got to take care of you now. So I moved my emotions somewhere else. But really, I looked at that and went, that's not for me. And how am I going to be well? Given this diagnosis, how am I going to be well? Given this forecasting, how am I going to be well? And that's basically how I really have designed my life since. Oh, wow. What year was that? Like, it's about, I hate to say, I'm 54 and I was 40 when I got that diagnosis. So 14 years.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
And how you dealt with that was, I mean, I love that mindset. I think that is so critical and is so unusual to say, well, wait a minute, this is one perception here that I'm expected to totally accept this, totally accept the probability, totally accept all the implications, totally accept, every implication around it. And you said, I'm not going to do that, which is huge. Such an amazing example.
Oh, thank you. I think I was also really lucky to have just probably about 6 months prior to that, I was going through a really difficult divorce at the same time. And so the relationship obviously wasn't good, and I was not feeling good about things. And so I went to see a psychiatrist, actually, because I thought I need some help here. And I knew there was Huntington's in the background of my family. Obviously, my dad had it, my grandma had it, and then on in the family tree. So I thought maybe the way I'm feeling is actually related to Huntington's disease. And so I went to see the psychiatrist to talk about that possibility. And they basically didn't really even listen to my story. It was, I was 45 minutes at most. It was probably even less than that. Talking with them, they were very dismissive of that being a possibility, but we're, very happy still to write me a prescription for some sort of antidepressant. So I was sitting in the parking lot outside of the pharmacy, and I called my mom, and I just said, "Mom, what do you think about this? And it's going to be 6 weeks until it works anyway, and I'm in pain right now." And she says, so she said, "So do you think you're actually in pain because you're depressed, or do you think it's situational?" Which was a very good question.
Very good.
And I was just, no, it is situational. So she said, "Do you think you should then think about changing the situation?" And I just said, "Thanks, Mom."
He didn't even charge you.
It was free. So those of you who say I never listen to my mother, sometimes that's a good idea. Listen to Mom.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it was funny because years later we were talking about it. So this would have been, 15 years ago. Years later we were talking about it, and she said, "Oh, I don't even remember saying that." I remember saying something about how it might, you might put on some weight if you go on that or whatever she thought she said. And I'm like, "No, what you actually said was this other thing." She said, "Wow, that was really that was some wisdom." Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So we don't know where these things are, the wisdoms that come to us. But if we're intuiting, if we're really listening to what's best for us, it is just rings true.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. And you've been very healthy in these 15 years, amazing. It's incredible. I found that story about you getting the diagnosis with your friend there.
Yes.
And because she was crying and bawling.
Actually, it was a he.
He. Okay. Oh,
which
right.
even makes it more bizarre, right? Just go, what?
So he was crying and all emotional. I think that's really interesting. In any situation, there are so many ways of experiencing that situation, right?
Yes.
So many ways. So, in that situation, you could have got angry with the doctor. You could have got really sad and depressed about the diagnosis. I mean, there are so many different perceptions of that situation. And we need to be aware of that. We're not. Typically, we have a habitual response, and that's what we think is reality. But there's so many. And the fact that he started crying changed that anyway for you. Oh, I better take care of him.
Better take care of him. That's right.
Yeah.
But I did have in that moment too, the other thought was I need to make sure that I'm okay for when I go home to see my children, who were 10 and 11 at that time. And that's young. So in very young to take on that news. And they knew I was going for the genetic testing. We talked about it a lot in our family. And so I did have the wherewithal to ask the doctor for some Ativan. I said, "Could I have a prescription for Ativan? Because what I'm thinking is I feel good right now, but what if I'm not in 4 hours from now? And I don't want the kids to actually have to experience somebody who is having a complete emotional breakdown, because that's not right." As a parent, I just thought that's not the right thing for them to experience or see. Because it's not glorious being fearful, and your children don't need to have that instilled in them. That was my thought. So I went into the pharmacy, got the prescription for the Ativan. My friend just, kind of stopped crying, and he went to his truck. I went into the pharmacy, and it was just I don't know what happened, but it was it felt like a waterfall had just really washed over me as I walked through that pharmacy door. And it was almost like there was this difference between myself and everyone else in that pharmacy. And I thought, I have had this experience so profound in my body, my life, that I will never, that's what it felt like. I will never be on the same page as all these other people again, which is very disconnecting, right? It's like that you do feel so alone when you get the diagnosis of something that's incurable. And so Huntington's is quote unquote incurable. So is life, I guess, but we're mortal, but so there's lots of really complex things to think about, and to like just to hold the context of them, and to be able to sort of deal with rationally and grieve at the same time. So it's very complex holding all that, and not putting your grief on other people, and really to go, what am I grieving here? Like nothing's actually happened that's any different. Nothing's happened any different today, except I got some news. Right. I got some news. So it could or could not be bad. And then, so that feeling passed. I didn't get the prescription filled. I went back to my vehicle. I went home. The kids got off the bus. I picked them up. I told them the news, and then we went to the arena. My son was playing hockey. And so we went, and what I experienced then was just this crispness of life, this crispness and reverence for my life. Cause I have a beautiful life, and I have these beautiful children, and they're so full of joy and fun and love. And they're, just having reverence, I think, is one of the gifts of having something that is incurable, chronic, real, and that you savor. Or for me, it's like I was savoring life. And I just went, the next question was, how do I savor life every moment then? Is it just have to be this fleeting thing? Or could it actually be something that was more daily, or maybe even moment to moment? Because there was a thought that I don't know that many people have, like, can you actually savor life? One friend said to me, you can't play NHL hockey all year long, Leah. And I'm like, really? Who says you can't? So there's all of these, very interesting things where people want you to be down almost. And in order to get support, you need to look like you need support. That's what it, sort of in our culture has been. Yeah. Acts of charity or support. You're only going to get those things when you're really broken down, which I think speaks to this whole birth of all of these support groups that really are about, lots of the fundraising about things that could be cured through lifestyle as medicine. So my focus really was about lifestyle as medicine. And if there was some way that I could be helpful to other people in living that kind of life, then I was interested in doing that. Yeah.
And what better purpose is there than not just trying to help yourself, but also inspire and support and care for other people? That's really what it's about. And I know, and I've moved definitely much closer to this view that you had, than when we were working together. I accepted it, but I've much more embraced it in the last few years, of this notion of this sort of magnificent mind-body, subconscious mind-body with these trillions of cells that are really organizing things. They're the natural life force. And my view on it now is that they're processing 11 million bits of information a second. They're communicating at amazing levels, and they are sending to our consciousness kind of the best guess of what's happening, right? And then we just kind of we either accept it or fight it, and that mind body is amazing. And I know that you for a long time have been locked into that notion for sure. And tell us about that and how that manifests in your attempt to, as you say, live every second, appreciate every second of your life.
Great question, Howard. Thanks for asking that. I think the piece for me is that I was raised in a spiritual, like not spiritual woo-woo, in a home where there was beliefs about God. And so there was an understanding that I am the divine spark of God. And so whatever other context doesn't matter. But knowing that you are not just nothing changes how you treat yourself. And so if you actually really believe you're not just nothing, but you're this divine spark, then how would you treat that divine spark? And then that would be awesome. You would be amazing. Because if you're a chip off the old block, so to speak, what does the old block look like? They're awesome. That can be fierce, it can be powerful, it can be gentle and loving, it can be fluid and in motion, omnipotent and all-knowing and all-seeing and all-healing, and also taking on all the earthly things that are here for us in the 3D. But we were told we were made in the image of.
Mhm.
And so I choose to feed the divine spark a happy meal? Maybe I would. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it informed me, because it's not just mind body. There's mind, body, and your soul. And so, again, it's not spirit and this woo-woo spiritual new agey blah, blah, blah. This is the very grounded 3D little spark that, you were made in your mother's womb because of the divine masculine and feminine coming together in that very act of creation. We all were. And so it's not some sort of abstract idea. This is true in creation, throughout creation, So when we're accepting of that divine spark and we go, wow, I am unique and one amongst all. And it means that we're all awesome. We all have the capability, if we are of that divine spark, to, manifest things or create things in our life based on that. Doesn't mean there isn't going to be challenges. Doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, because in nature, it's the same thing. You just go, you see, trees don't live forever. Animals don't live forever. We have, opposable thumbs, and we have other things that are awesome about us, and that we're conscious. But that science actually hasn't figured out how to measure everything either. So we wait for science to measure things to prove to us that we can be well. For 400 years, science says the brain is hardwired. But yet, if you actually just observe what's going on in the world, you realize that's not true. The body's healing itself all the time. And so just having the connection or understanding that you are really a lot in control of what goes on in your physiology, but you have to spend some time in your physiology, which I think is what's happened to a lot of people over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Is there's so much time spent on manifesting things outside your body, like, meditating. We're going to meditate for 4 or 5 hours a day, or we're going to sit in whatever position for, to prove our, flexibility for 3 hours, whatever, that kind of thought. But it's not an in-body experience. And so you get detached from this body here that we're in this 3D plane. And then you don't notice when things aren't working. You don't notice when your brain isn't working. You don't notice any of that, because you're out of body, or you're living your life vicariously through other people,
External rather than internal.
Yes,
Yeah.
external.
Yeah. And the body knows best.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, the big difference between conventional alternative medicine. Alternative medicine recognizes the body knows best and tries to work with it, whereas conventional medicine is more about trying to simulate some of that, through medications and what have you. And some of the time, that's necessary and helpful. But the mindset then becomes, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to need medication for my whatever it is,
Yes.
And that's the wrong mindset. That's the wrong mindset.
I agree. It's like there is a place for allopathic medicine, like if you're injured and you need to be sewn up, you don't want to see somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. If you get hit in a car accident and you need mending, then absolutely 100% yay for that. But when you're getting things removed from your body because nobody bothered to tell you that if you clean up your nutrition, you could feel a lot better and not actually have to have surgery. I was working with a client that their grandson had fatty liver disease at 11 years old, I took them through, seriously, but I don't know that that's actually that uncommon, so when you look at the health stats of young people, it's not pretty, so we've got lots of people dealing with significant, real issues in their body, and then the spiritual problems around depression, loneliness. And so all those tools that I was able to develop during that really early part of when I got my diagnosis, because I felt alone. I didn't feel like there was anyone to talk to really, because in the community of people who are dealing with this disease, primarily it's medication. It's the route of, there's no information until you actually get sick. And then when you do get sick and symptomatic, we're going to medicate you. So I went, that's not for me. It's not for me. Right. And then jumping into every group where there is just horror story after horror story. If you don't have the internal mechanisms built in order to look at that objectively and to take that on as my personal story, a terrible situation for that individual person. Because just because that person's going down that pathway doesn't mean that you are going to go down that pathway. So just continue to do your best. Continue to do your best. And that was very important to me. So I was alone for a lot of that early days of having the diagnosis and going, well, what am I going to do? So you're given the gift of sitting in a big empty room of a whiteboard and having, your own little set of markers that you can actually script your life. So I did that. I wrote what I was going to eat, how I was going to train. And I did it though. Like I wrote it and I did it. So I didn't just write it. I remember standing at my house that I was living in at the time. And do you remember like the big Post-it notes that you could stick on the wall, those great big ones? I got a pad of those and I stuck them up on my wall and I wrote out everything that I already knew about stress management, because I was an executive coach for a number of years and I'm a counselor by trade, so I wrote out everything I already knew and went, you already got that, Leaha. You already got that. And you got that. You know about time management, but you've got all these things that you can bring to play. What don't you know? What's your blind spot? What's going to catch you? But those questions, then I was able to, and this is early days before the internet, Google search engines were there really. So I was doing more scientific research at the time, looking for scientific papers about really good neurology. How do you actually build a wonderful brain? And so I found out information about kids with epilepsy that, when they got rid of the epilepsy really fast by doing ketogenic, approaches. So that, fasting sort of to put ketosis into the body. So I did that right away. I didn't wait a week. I just went, oh, that totally makes sense to me. Gonna do it. And then, and then I did it. But I didn't ask other people for their opinion. I went, this is your health. This is your health. This is freaking serious. If you don't actually deal with this seriously, your children could experience a insane mother. And that was frightening to me. I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to be paranoid. I don't want to be schizophrenic. I want to be healthy. I want to be well. I don't want to look like I'm drunk when I'm not. All of that. I want to continue to have really excellent executive functioning, problem solving, decision making, impulse control, because those are all problems in the disease. It's a very, very complex disease. But it's funny in its complexity. It also has very simple solutions to, if you're going to be looking at it, like you could impact the onset of symptoms and the severity of symptoms, then the lifestyle stuff just makes sense, right? You just go, okay, well, I'm going to do everything that I can to be well for as long as I possibly can. And if this thing comes and, is onset, I will have done everything that I possibly can to be well. And that means my cupboard is still completely medication free. Like none. I take nothing. Yeah, I don't even take any supplements at this point. And I've got great hair, so for people, I don't know if you're recording the video, but it's just, and part of it's proofs in the pudding when people go, is that possible? I go, proofs in the pudding. So it's important to actually look at what people look like in this 3D body, because people talk a good game about that they're spiritually connected and that they're emotionally good and that they've got all their energetic bodies, under control. And then you look at them and go, really? It doesn't look like it. It looks like you don't. So
well, you're definitely a walking example, because you absolutely look very good, the picture of health. So yeah, there will be some clips on the YouTube channel where the people can actually see you. Yeah, no, that's right.
Yes.
and you did all the lifestyle things. What other things did you do? I mean, I know nutrition and exercise has always been part of your being, as it were, and the stress management and the emotional control. What were some of the tools or things that you did that, you have found to be incredibly helpful?
Another great question. I journaled a lot. I wrote a lot, and I took personal responsibility for writing a lot. And that I have got boxes and boxes and boxes of journals, and people go, "Oh, do you read that stuff?" I'm like, no, maybe if I needed to, but really it was more about writing. So writing what I was grateful for, noticing what I was grateful for. So I did very specifically, I did the alphabet every day, for example, before I went to bed. So A through Z, things that I was grateful for, and tried to come up with a new list every day. And then playfully, I would try with the left hand to do it. I'm right hand dominant, but I would go left-handed. Let's try and write it out this way, because that was just a little bit more fun or more of a challenge. And then you notice how much your brain complains about doing things differently. Right? So just go, wow, I've got a whiny brain here in this little category. So just working on my own whiny brain was one thing. The other thing that I did was I need to visualize that these neurons are healing themselves. So when you think about all of the neurons in the brain, and you can Google search now any picture, you can find very great pictures. But at the time when I got my diagnosis, that wasn't something. And so I found some old magazine that actually showed a very cool zappy looking picture of all the synapses and the telomeres even. And so telomeres was this whole new concept people weren't really talking about, but I went, oh, okay. So I could have fast neurons. I could have really nice telomeres. I'm going to visualize my brain healing itself. And what I pictured was like little ziggy, little construction men in my brain working like ants, essentially, and bringing all these new partitions into my brain, like laying railroad tracks. And these little guys would just be everywhere. So it was like working all the time, and they were bright yellow, and everyone's like beaming like little golden sunshine bits, like very, very high vibrational, good, juicy, and happy workers. So not this kind of downtrodden, I'm carrying my heavy burden. It's like more like what you would see now on, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a kid's movie that would kind of parallel it now, but it was just that more high energy, high vibrational stuff. And then Dr. Norman Doidge wrote a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. So I had read that book and went, oh yes, that's right. Neurons that fire together, wire together. So I started doing the visualizations when I was on the treadmill or when I would go for a walk. And so that go for a run, visualize. And so I never had earbuds in. I never ran with or cycled with any earbuds in or other music playing. Like that was very, very rare. I was always thinking about visualizing, amplifying this healing of the neurons, because that's where this disease lies. Right. And so then as I progressed through that 14 years, I would just kind of athletically do lots of things and see this visualization. And then there came a point where I had a couple of injuries and, I couldn't really be quite as athletic as I had been. So I started, met a guest on the Master Your Life show. His name is Master Lee Holden. And we interviewed him. I went, I got to know more about this stuff because it sounds like something that could actually make me well, like really help to amplify how I feel. And so I became a Qigong teacher. I took all the training. And then with Qigong, my ability to amplify that feeling, not just in my brain, but to connect it to my heart, my solar plexus, down into the Jing Qi, which is kind of the pelvic center. So I'm like a walking battery. So this microcosmic orbit is the move that you do when you're actually making yourself into your own illuminated being. And it's something everybody can do, everybody. So any age, any ability, young, old. And people who are disabled can do this kind of stuff. So but that's the big primary stuff for me really is like the journaling, Qigong. And you can see I have a guitar in the background. I sing a lot. I do healing sounds, still do. And I've sang for years and years and years. And I think that's a natural healing thing. I sing to my grandchildren, which is also a natural healing thing. And I spend lots of time with my grandchildren. So I've been a grandma now for 7 years, almost 8. And so all of that good, juicy love that you can exchange with other people is important. And then recently coming upon terahertz frequency. So, we've explored all kinds of things with the rewiring of the brain. So we've had, Dave Seaver from Mind Alive on as a guest, Dr. David Hardy to talk about functional medicine, the Genius Biofeedback guys to talk about that. This latest technology I'm finding is really being helpful, not for just me, but lots of people who are doing it with me report really good improvements in their health, in their physical ailments, skin conditions, like all kinds of things. So it's very interesting. So anyone who wants to check that out can definitely just come to the masteryourlife.ca website. And I always say it's like I've had a lot of skin in the game to be well, because the consequence for me is serious if I don't take it seriously. And so I've experimented with a lot of things. And some things have had better results than others. And the things that, just like like if you've experimented with things and something doesn't work for you, then just discard it and move it on to the next thing. But not complaining about when things don't work is another key, right? It's this guy going, well, that didn't work for me. Okay, then next. A lot of the next.
We don't need negative energy, right? And that's really what you're talking about, as you talk about vibrational energy and keeping your energy high and in a way sort of positive, not in a woo-woo sense, but and I think that energy is important because that's what our body thrives on. Just think about, trying to energize something that has low energy. It's not going to function very well. But now you give it energy and it's going to function at its best. And remember, of course, as you know, the mind, body, spirit knows best how to heal itself. And so that's one of the difficulties with depression. You go into low energy and then everything is going down and not working very well, specifically, that mind, body, spirit. And when you can fire that up and give it energy, for all the sorts of things you're talking about, exercise, good nutrition, following specific thoughts, visualizing, very powerful. When you do that, what you're doing is you're enabling your body to be at its best. And that's what we want, because that's the best way of healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And see it coming and heading it off at the pass with depression. One of the very early on things in my education, so 30 some years ago, we had this great, I think she was a psych nurse that came and taught in one of my classes. And she was talking about that you could control depression or how you feel by just thinking differently about it. And how you got out of bed, just evaluate how it is you get out of bed. So I went home and did this experiment with myself at that time, so 30 some years ago. And the first day I got out of bed my normal way, which is I'm pretty happy, reasonably happy. And then the second morning I got out of bed intentionally in a not good mood and went, as the day went on, it was just a horrible experiment. I just was like, okay, that is not for me. That is not for me. But, being conscious about for myself, if I feel like I want to stay in bed, I really check in and go, why is it you want to stay in bed? Like, is it, and I'm conscious about it. And I go, is it because I'm actually tired, or am I feeling something that is sad or low grade? Because when you move things out of your body, they move out. But if you stay stuck in the emotion, you can be stuck in bed for a very long time. So I just don't allow myself to stay in bed unless I'm physically tired because I've had a really draining day, because sleep's important, rest is important. Anyone who's pretty physically active or chasing after kids or just whatever people are doing in their life. If you're physically active, you maybe need more sleep to repair things, so that's also the truth. But yeah, not staying stuck in depression, super important. Move your body. Your brain likes to trick you into lots of things, many, many things. We're like the biggest storytellers to ourselves. And this was one of the things I did early on too, Howard, was writing my own story. So when we're telling our story, who is it that you really are? Leaha Mattinson, so filling in the blank to that. Who are you really? And so when you write it down, it's different than when you think it.
Yep.
So this is very, very key when people are, again, it's like the talking in groups of other people or meditating or whatever it is. It's a very different activity. It makes you accountable to yourself when you write things down. And it also makes you explore your thoughts with yourself when you write things down, right? Because, if you're asking those really important questions, who are you? Fill in your name here and write that out. Who are you? And then start actually writing it down. There might be some things that you're not very happy about. I know for me, there was things that I was like, no, how did I get myself into this? So there's really, you develop your own confessional in a way and your own accountability meter then too, go, okay, well, if I want to live a life I'm proud of, what kind of life am I trying to create here? So these things that strike me is I want to live a life that I'm proud of. I want to be proud of myself, and not pride in that egotistical sense of whatever it is, but just going, no, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of the way I articulate. I'm proud of my mind. I'm proud of, showing up for work every day diligently. I'm proud that I'm an encourager of people. I'm proud that I put my family, first, and so at the times when I don't do that, I have that metric though. So if you don't know for yourself what your values are, it's very easy to get pulled off course on those things, because culture, if you watch TV for 5 seconds, they've got you. It's just
No, it's
the
true.
brain sucker is on your head sucking.
I know it's total manipulation, and generally for profit, their profit.
Right.
Total manipulation. We live like that. And I saw an article in Forbes magazine where they said the average person is exposed in one way or another to at least, I couldn't believe this, 5,000 advertisements a day. Mm-hmm. Just think of what does that do to you? What does that do to your brain when you're being, at some level, you're being manipulated, but this whole marketing science quotation mark is designed to either make you angry or motivated or what have you. And, it's not good. Let's put it that way. Right. Where do you get moral education from? Where do you get it from? Where do you get a reminder of your values? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And as you say, it's one thing to sort of in the back of your mind say, oh yeah, I'm kind of a virtuous person, but you got to think about that.
And are you?
And are you? Yeah, and put it into practice, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I think the practice of getting quiet with yourself and not being tuned into the TV, your soul is virtuous. When you're not doing something that's in your best interest or in the best interest of your family, you 100% know it. Now, whether or not you choose to act on that is part of the what we're all working on all the time. We're all working on that all the time, is how do I actually be the best version of myself? And when we don't do things that follow that path, we can tend to heap more of that stuff on top of it, right? And so it's like, well, I ate that donut yesterday. I'm a crappy person, so I'm just going to eat 5 more donuts because now I have to feel better about that. And when you untangle that, because we've all been given our own burdens, our own things that we have to work through, our own life challenges. And not everyone's life challenge is your life challenge. Your life challenges are your life challenge. And so looking at other people and trying to figure out the way actually is not the way. The way is to look internally to yourself and to sit in your own little canoe and go on your river of niceness and go, so what is it that is for me? What am I supposed to be bringing into my boat? And what am I supposed to just be leaving for other people? So there's lots of things that can amplify us and that are interesting to us and that capture our attention, which is what advertising is all about. But when you get all that stuff in your boat sinks, so it's like getting everything out that is not for you And so that you can float down the river lightly, a little more lightly. But we have to go out on life's adventures. You have to do that. So we can't also coddle everybody. Everyone's got to go out and fail. Everyone's got to go out and hit the wall. Everyone's got to go out and really try hard and have lots of stuff just happen that's not that awesome. It's just like, what in the actual heck just happened there? Like, did that just come out of the blue and from out of nowhere? Sometimes it does.
It does, yeah. So
even if you've done everything and you've been virtuous and you've been really trying to live a good life, life still is doing its thing over here. And you are then trying to figure out, it's like surfing, I guess. I think like the surfing analogy of you get on the wave and you're trying to stay on your board, and there's going to be some waves that really are not that awesome, and you're going to drink some water, but get up and get back on your board as many times as you possibly can, like build that physical resilience to do it. And that's a physical act. It's not just something you see in your mind, right? So it's whatever your physical ability is, do that. Like, even if you're physically disabled, do as much as you can do, to move your body.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. My dad walked on his walker until he was 83. He was walking on his walker and he did his stairs. He did the stairs still until he was 82. Like, he only didn't do stairs for about the last year, which is not necessarily that good, but it's a bit dangerous.
But I'm sure we both know people who got prosthetic, limbs, and people go up to them and they say, "I'm so sorry." And why are you sorry? Do you think I'm less than because I got a prosthetic limb? I can run faster than you can.
That's right.
And it's amazing. And so the cultural narrative is, "Oh, you poor thing, you're a victim," and what have you. That's, the victim mentality is the worst possible thing you can adopt, even if it's justified. People do nasty things to people. There's no question. Yes. But being a victim is the worst thing you can do. No question about it. Yeah. And you're the opposite of that. You just said, basically, I refuse to be a victim to this, right?
Yes.
I have power to overcome this.
Yeah. As much as I physically can, mentally and emotionally, spiritually, yes. Yes and yes, 100%. And the other thing is that life is full of things that we need to grieve also. So you can be emotionally calm and mature and all that. My dad passed away at Christmas time this past year. And I did an interview about, a week later, and this fellow that I had interviewed said, "Are you going to take some time to grieve?" And I was like, yes, I will. And I am grieving. And I have had times where I've definitely cried about nothing even in particular, just like it rises up. I let the tears out. I went and visited my dad's grave, and I just, as I was walking up, I was overcome with weeping, and just not for any reason. Like, there's no words, like it's not a wordy word thing. It's an emotion that sweeps over you for the reverence of life. I think, at least for me, that's what it was. I loved my father so much. And he was such an honorable man. And even if you don't have that in your family, like, because, there's lots of shenanigans goes on, but the memory of my dad is very dear to me, and crying about it and releasing it. And but it didn't take forever. I didn't cry for hours, and it'll probably come up again and again. We were laughing about it, his internment, that the wind was just vicious, like absolutely. It was freezing cold, April 18th or something. Like, we waited quite a while to actually do the interment, because I live in Canada. So the ground was very frozen solid in the cemetery, and then trying to get people together for the interment. So it was in mid-April that we did it. But the wind was just wicked and cold. So out to the graveside comes these longtime friends of my mom and dad's. And the two women of these two couples came out, and they're all like, curled up in their coats, and we're all just freezing. So any sign of being able to cry was completely gone, because the wind whipped it away. So we're having a laugh about that. But Dad, what input did you have, Father dear, on this, crazy weather that happened that day, so that, that we held it together. And then instead of actually crying, we were laughing about this absolutely crazy weather. So
that's amazing. And Of course, the one thing to know about grief is the hurt is proportional to the love, you know. Yeah. If you didn't have that love and he didn't love you, there wouldn't be much grief or any. But it's just the flip side of love.
And I think the other thing too, Howard, is that when you have that knowing of the divine, you know everything's okay after death, which I think a lot of people don't have that knowing. Correct. You know, so I just know it. I know that death is going to be okay. Does it mean that I'm running towards it? No, it just means that it's okay and that it's nothing to be afraid of, that it's a very natural part of life.
Absolutely.
It's the only two things certain, right? Life and death and taxes. Death, but it is life and death. And so thinking that you can outrun it also makes people crazy. They do all kinds of crazy things to twist themselves into pretzel pieces to avoid it. But when you actually just understand that or for me, I'll just speak for myself, but when you have a connection with the spiritual world and you know that everything is unfolding as it should, and that you've done everything that you can, that you just have to sort of sit with things and let them come to you, decide if they're for you or not, if they're your thing to deal with or not, and then let them go, but keep myself at that high vibrational frequency and expectation too. I expect good things to come to me. It's like, what do you expect? And we're almost out of time, but I like during the COVID time, and I will speak to this directly because this is a bunch of shenanigans right out of the chute. And I took lots of business hits because of that. Like I lost money because of that. And I still held to my integrity and went, okay, well, this is the lumps that you have to take. And that's okay. It's not any different than any of the other lumps you've taken along the way, Leah. So put it into perspective. But I wasn't willing to actually not see my grandchildren. And the capitulation to not see people, this is the en masse loneliness that we're seeing, and the more disconnection has really been amplified over the last couple of years. So I just wish for everybody that they, you're welcome to come to the masteryourlife.ca website for more information about how to be well and how to take control of your own health, which is what it's all about: mental, emotional, physical well-being. And I just wish for everybody's families to be well, for you to be all healing, working together, because that's where the healing has to happen, is first of all within our internal selves, within our families. And the only ones who can do that are us. We're fully in control of that. So I think that's what's on the top shelf for if you need a health coach, look to yourself as your health coach and go, how can I be well? And how can I help other people in my family to be well? Yeah,
absolutely. Again, masteryourlife.ca. Your great episodes and videos and stuff on there. Awesome. Thank you so much. This is so inspirational. Your journey, the wisdom that you've imparted, I think is so critical. And I can't thank you enough for not just being on the show, but just being here, because I do think it's got a lot of potential to help many, many people. So thank you, Leah. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a part of our program today. Master Your Life is a presentation of Leaha Mattinson Enterprises, Inc. Join us next time on Master Your Life, helping you to discover the very best of you.